Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make these rose wirework shoe clips, and these are the two that I've done here. So it's the exact same basic technique, but you can see these are quite different in the sense they use different wire. So one is silver and one is copper. But then also I've made one go from one side all the way across the front to the other side of the shoe to give it nice decoration all the way across. But then the other one here I've just made to be on one side of the shoe, so it gives a really nice effect across there. And then you get these little shoe clips that you then attach. So they're really nice and easy to use, and also nice and comfortable, because on one side you have a little kind of dome part, that's a part that clips inside, that's against your skin, so it's really nice and comfortable to wear as well. So you just use your clips and obviously attach your piece here onto the shoe and just wear it like normal. So that's what they look like. So if you want to learn how to make these, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. Now what I have here first of all is regular round copper wire, and I'm using a 0.6mm, and this is all I'm really going to be using to create the piece. And I'm then going to create what I'm going to make and then attach that onto these shoe clips that look like this. And then you open them, and then that's the clip part. You attach whatever you make onto them. So we're going to use them to obviously make it into a piece you can attach onto your shoes. So let's get it all together and let's get started. So then what we need to do is take our wire here and start making the piece, but I'm not cutting off a length. I personally prefer to work with it off the reel. So what I'm going to be doing is actually working with it in this. So I usually like to do this when I'm working with my wire off the reel. I prefer to use this a yarn ball. I got the idea to use this to make it more manageable, so it doesn't kind of spring all over the place. It really helps, makes it a lot easier as well. So I'm going to be working like that, so I'm not using a specific length because you can't really tell how much you're going to need to make this. So the main tool that I'm going to be using to make this is a pair of round nose pliers here, and then also I'm just going to have measuring tape handy to help as a guide throughout as well. So I'm going to start working with my wire here. I'm just going to start right towards the end, because obviously we're making this in one continuous piece because I'm working off the reel, and it also helps prevent wastage of wire and all that. So just work right from the end, and I just want to start measuring here to get a rough guideline to continue working with as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my round nose pliers where I kind of want the midpoint of the wires that I'm working with to be. So I'm going to start with about 6 centimeters. So I'm going to be using 6 to 5 centimeters as a rough guideline. So maybe if you like measure a couple of times at the beginning, then you kind of get used to how long the lengths are, and you'll be able to start judging it by eye. But right to begin with, just as a guideline, I'm just going to measure it. So I have 6 centimeters here, and then I have my round nose pliers, and then I'm going to bend the end over the top of my round nose pliers like that. So I have both wires going in the same direction and both tails, and then I'm going to take the end, the long one that's attached to my reel still, and bend it in the opposite direction. So now I have them crossing over. So basically I've created a little circle. I'm going to keep my pliers in there because I'm going to use this to hold on to while I'm then making my rose. And this is how I'm going to keep making the roses throughout. And now I just want to say it's a little bit, can be a bit tricky to work with this wire and making the roses because the wire is attached to the reel still. But you just kind of get used to it as you make a few, and then figure out what's the best way for you to work with it. Because then you then learn how to work with the wire while still attached to the reel without it being too much in the way. So what I'm then going to do is start twisting these together, basically chasing each other. And that also fastens it in place. And then along the way as I'm doing this, I'm going to have to kind of release my grip on my pliers, and then move the wire out of the way to then re-grip on the pliers there, just so I can get it around. So obviously we need to keep moving it here because we're twisting and twisting around. Then I'm going to take my tail here. Now we need to start it completely chasing each other. I'm going to take my tail, I'm lifting the front one up a bit, take my tail underneath that one, over the front of it, under the front there, and then lift that up a little bit. So I just kind of give it a gentle push up, not too much. Then I take the tail, the long one that's now the back one, that go around the outside of the front one, and then when it's in front, then I push that up a little bit, and then I keep doing this. Basically, like I said, the wires are chasing each other, and that's how we're building up the rows from the middle. I just need to move my grip again, and if it slips out just like that did, just put your pliers back in, because you have that loop that we're holding on to. Lift it up a bit, have the other one chase it, come around, and then keep going like this. I'm going to keep doing that until I've used the length of the short tail there. And then you can start to see the roses really building up there in the middle. So just keep bringing the back one around the outside and then underneath, constantly chasing each other like that. And then it's growing kind of larger and larger, the rows. They're starting to really look like one as well. Getting towards the end of my short end there of the wire. And I just want to make sure I don't go right to the end, I just want to leave a little bit of length just to work with. So I'm going to go around here, then I think I'm going to go one last time with the short one around the outside. So that's now coming underneath, and you can see I don't really have much more left there to work with. So I'm just going to take my pliers out for now, and you can just straighten your wire back out. That is attached to the reel if you need to. Then I'm just going to go to the back here. This is just the first one I'm doing this with, because we have that kind of open end that was a short tail. I want to just kind of get rid of that so it's out of the way, and it's not going to irritate us while we can maybe catch on it or scratch on it while we keep working with it, and it's not in the way, but also just we might as well just get rid of it now. So what I'm going to do is take some chain nose pliers, get right to the end of it, and bend it inwards towards the middle on the back side of the rose. And then basically I want to get it through that little loop that's on the back that we made with the round nose pliers. So just get it right through there, and that's basically then a way to secure it off as well. And just get it in there. So just make sure it's not sticking out anywhere, because that's what we obviously need to make sure of throughout, but this is an end tail of the wire, so we just need to make sure that that can't catch or scratch on anything. So when we have the first rose in place here, that's going to be the very beginning part of what we're making, and now we want to keep building our roses from this one onwards. And we're going to keep using this long length of wire that's attached to the reel. So I just want to bring this here around the back of the rose, so that's kind of coming out from underneath the rose without being able to really see anything underneath there. So now we need to move on to making the next one, and again you can get out your measuring tape here just for reference. So I know the first one that I made 6 centimeters long. So now how long you choose your wire to be that you work with then also determines how large your rose is going to be. So the next one maybe I would want to say 5 centimeters just to make it a little bit smaller. Doesn't have to obviously be precise like that or anything. Plus after a couple of times I then start doing it by eye, and then you get kind of random sizes but roughly around the same size still. So I measure it right from where the wire is coming out underneath the rose till where I hold my pliers. Then we need to move on and make the next rose here. So I bend the tail over the top back on itself, the rose is just on the end of it, and then the long tail that's attached to the reel over the top as well in the opposite direction on the side of it. And then we need to start twisting these against each other just to kind of fasten it in place, just how we started out the first one. The difference now is we have the rose attached to that short tail end. So there we go. And then I'm going to start having the wires chase each other again. So take my short one, bring it around the outside and underneath the front one, and then lift up a bit when you have that in front. Then take the long one, it's attached to the reel, around the outside, underneath, and around then to the front. Lift that up a bit, then the short one around, underneath and to the front, and lift that up. And then this is how we're building this second rows. And again, obviously, if you need to move anything to get the wire with you, because it can be a little bit fiddly to work with while it's still attached to the reel, but we kind of have to work with one length for this to be a solid piece. So now we need to bring this around. I need to just move my hand position, so I need to bring my wire on the other side of my pliers here and get it around, and then underneath, keep building it just in the exact same way. And you can see we're getting kind of less and less to work with on the short tail. We're getting closer and closer to that rose on the end. I need to get my wire around again. And then the tail still on the outside, back underneath to the front. And the long end. So basically they just keep swapping places. Now we're getting really close to this. We can't really do many more movements with it. And then also what you just want to then check is on the first row is the one that we've got on the end there. What's the front and the back? Because obviously we want to make sure that the front of all the roses are always going to be on the same side. So either it will naturally be that, and that's fine, or otherwise all you're going to do is just flip it around. Just like that. And then, right now they pretty much sit right next to each other. So I'm just going to take the long end, bring around the outside again. And then you can see with this one, I can't really move it anymore because the roses are now set right next to each other. And that's how we then built up the second rose. And we then still have this length of wire attached to them. You can kind of see we're going to be building them like this, working our way a little bit further down, building up the rows until it gets right close to the other ones, and basically make almost what you could say a little cluster and build it up that way. Now what I'm then going to do here is just get a little bit further on so I can show you what I also do along the way, but I just need to have a little bit more of the roses done for showing you how, and then also connect them together a little bit better, because otherwise it's going to be very loose if we only have the kind of one wire connecting to another rose. So I'm just going to show you when I get a little bit further on how I deal with that. So then just to show you here in this one, I've then gone to make the next rose, obviously making that a little bit smaller again, to fit in a nice gap just here. And then I've got to the point where I've almost reached the other roses to meet up with that new one I'm making. So I'm going to bring the long end up a little bit there at the front, because that's the front one. Then I need to bring the two roses there, so the short tail where I have the two roses attached, further around to the front. And that basically puts them right next to each other and just fits in that gap just perfectly. So then I have the long tail coming out the other side. I'm going to just bring that around again, the outside, as if I'm going another round, and then underneath those roses. I'm just going to take my pliers out, and then we can flip it to the back and have a look as well. Because then basically what I want to start doing now is connecting the different roses a bit better together as well. Because otherwise it's going to be very loose and flimsy, this, especially when we get further and further on. So I brought this around the outside and around to the back. And then what I'm going to do is make sure it's lying nice and flat on the back, as flat as it can do. And then instead of just having it come out down here, continuing from where it came from there and making a rose there. So instead of doing that, to add the extra security a little bit, I'm bringing it around the bottom just like I showed you. And then I'm coming in between the two other roses, so opposite basically than where the wire is coming from. And then I'm going to go from underneath in between those two and pull the wire completely down in between, so it's going to blend in, you won't really be able to see it. And then coming on the other side, bring it down just underneath to where you want the next rose to then sit. So just like that, and then coming out, and then want my next rose to be built right here and then fit in this little gap as well. So that's what I do throughout as well, just to make sure to connect everything a little bit better. Now what I also like to do, and I recommend doing as you're making your piece, is get your shoe out, and then I've also just attached an empty clip on there just to get a guideline for where I want the clip to sit. And I like referencing back to my shoe continuously to make sure I get the right shape, and obviously that the shape that I'm building looks nice on the shoe. So this is starting from this side here, and I want it to start the very first rose there, starting kind of the end. Then I'm building up downwards here, going across to the middle, and then further. And obviously you can build it however you want to. So I keep referencing back to that, because then I can tell where I'm going to need to keep building my roses to get the shape and how the fit is that I want it to be. So I know the next one that I want is where the wire's coming out, so that's fine and perfect as it is. So I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to make a bit more here. So I now made the next rose as well again there. Just want to show you one more time that now I've got it close enough to the other ones. And then I'm going to bring the long tail that's still attached to the reel around the back of everything, making sure the rose sits where I want it to. And then just release my pliers. And then just again, to connect them better together, I'm bringing it around the long wire there around the back of everything, and then just finding where I think it will fit and be nice and connect better, come up through some roses, and then down through again to help hide the wire underneath them all, and then come out in the next place where I want to make a new rose, and that's going to be around here. So if again I just bring my shoe in, and then we check it. So if I'm going to start up here, it's going to sit a little something like that. Then it fits pretty nicely with the next rose being made where my wire is coming out. And it's also to have a good guideline for where you need to then add your clip as well, to make sure you obviously make your piece big enough to hide the clip behind it, because you don't want it showing on either of the sides. And then you just basically keep building it like this. So that's all there really is to it. You just place your pliers the next place where you want to start your next rose, obviously judging the size that you want it to be. And now obviously what I just want to mention as well, this piece up here is obviously going to get larger and larger to kind of have the end of that little tail, but it's just a matter of continuing to work with it how it is, and if you need to kind of push it a little bit out of the way every now and then. So I'm just going to do all the same things, just being mindful obviously to not misshape anything that I've already made. So just like that, continuing along the same lines here. So all you can really see is at some point it's going to grow, and it can be a little bit in the way for getting around the pliers there, but just then gently guide it over and then continue making your roses. But then you always know that your rose is going to end up sitting where you started out, with the wires coming out from that cluster of roses that you've already made. Obviously then creating the shape that you want it to be as well. So that's all there really is to it. Building your roses like this, just connecting them a bit along the way. Having the wires chase each other here. And obviously getting the shape that you want to fit your shoe nicely. However you want it to sit as well. Whether you maybe just want it on one side or over the front and going up kind of both sides. So I'm just going to get to the end of this one. Bring it all the way around. I'm getting close to it. And you see so far that actually looks like it's going to naturally sit facing the right way. So this is the top or the front of them, and that's also the top and the front of the one I'm making. But like I said, if it's the back that's facing, just keep an eye on it, so obviously you don't kind of find out later on and it's kind of too late to go back. So if you do see it's the back, all you do is just flip it around to make sure it then fits nicely. and then just get it right into place where you want it to sit. And then you can take your pliers out whenever you need to, just to help hold on to things and maneuver things in the right positions. And then again, take your length of the long wire, bring it underneath some of the roses, up through some, and then down through again towards the place where you then want to start making the next one. So something like that. And you can see we're slowly and gradually building the cluster more and more. We're kind of going to end up with like a flat layer of the roses there. And one on the back side. The back is going to look a bit messy, but that's just the way it is. You won't be able to see that anyway when you wear it, so it doesn't really matter. So just focus and worry mostly about the front there. So keep building it however you want it to look. So then here I have the final shape that I'm going to be using. I kept going making the roses, following as well along. Keep referring back to the shoe there, and we'll place the clips in so I can all reference to where everything is going to be sitting. So I know what direction I'm going in as I'm making it. So it's going to sit something like this. And you see it gives a really nice effect there, adds to the shoe. It's a nice embellishment. So this is how mine is going to look, but what we need to do now is just work a little bit more with it, because as you can see it's quite flimsy here. Obviously we are going to attach it to the clips, but I still want it to be a little bit more substantial than just being able to move it like this. So what we're going to do for that is use still this wire, and we need to go back over the whole piece, and also alongside doing that, as we go through and do that, make it more substantial, then we also need to then add in the clips as well. So now that I made all the roses here that I know that I want, then as we need to go back over and reinforce it and attach the clips as well, I'm going to cut off the wire from the reel. So I need to cut it off here, and again it's hard to know exactly what length you're going to need to go back over it with, because it also depends on what you're making. This is obviously the larger piece, so for instance as well, if you were making the smaller piece like this, you would obviously need less wire to cut off for that. But what I'm using in this case is about 1 meter, so that's just to go back over and then also attach this piece to the clips, because also you can see here to attach them they have these little holes in them, so we have to actually have the end of the wire to be able to go through them and attach it. So how I'm going to reinforce this is obviously, like I said, using this long tail of wire that we cut off, but we've ended up on this side with the roses. So now I want to start from this side with this, and then just basically go back over to the other side again, and along the way attach the clips as well. So all you want to do is basically similar to what we've been doing when I showed how to make the roses to get your wire in position for the next rose. We're going to be doing that throughout basically, but without adding in any more roses. So in this case my wire here ended on the back. So what I'm going to do is constantly kind of find a way through the roses, but also mindful of how it's going to help fasten it more, make it more secure. So I'm going to come through here and back down the other side. So pull it through as well, so the wire basically ends up underneath the roses so you can't really see it on the front. It's going to obviously get more messy on the back, but don't worry about that, like I said, because it's going to be against the shoe anyway. I'm going to come underneath the next one. And sometimes you might have to maneuver your wire a little bit in place, or you can also use pliers. So some chain nose pliers are good for that, to actually get your wire to go where you want it to. Because I want to make sure that it gets hidden underneath there. And then back up there. And because especially the end, it's obviously kind of by itself, what I'm then going to do sometimes as well, because when we made the roses, you can do that throughout. We started out basically with a little circle there, so a little loop, and we can use them now as well to go back through. So obviously that's also where we need the end of the wire. So I'm going to grab that and then go through the loop on the final rose there, just in this case because that's where I am. I just want to make sure I fasten that nicely and pull the wire all the way through. Make sure you don't get any kinks or damage the wire in any way. So pull that through, and that's going to really help secure the end one in place even more, because all we're really focusing on is making it more of a stable piece. It's still going to be flexible, but just not as loose as it is here. So like that, going through, and then you just need to get your wire to the next point. So you keep flipping it back and forth to see where it's best to go next with your wire basically. And also you keep feeling, when you're going around an area here, keep kind of feeling how loose it still is. When you feel that it gets kind of fastened enough, you can then obviously keep moving forward to the next area. So it's just a matter of figuring that out along the way. So go to my next one, making sure the back's still, it's going to get messy like I said, but try and still keep it as flat as possible really. So we don't have any wire sticking out in a weird way. Like that. And then just keep finding a way with your wire here. Basically fastening it all better together. Like that. And already I can feel this end has gotten a lot more stable and I can't really pull it apart like I could before. So that's all you really want to do all the way down to the other side. But along the way, like I said, we need to add in the clips. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to keep referring back to the shoe again. So work my way down one side, and then when I get to the point where I'm reaching the first clip, that's where then when I obviously be mindful I need to add that in as well. So I'm going to work my way down here, and then when I get there I'm going to show you how I add in the clip. So now I went further down here on this side, and I've reached the point where I've got my first clip on the shoe, so referring back to it there. So obviously I want to make sure that I incorporate that into it. And I have my wire coming out on the back. So what I'm going to need to do is take the clip off the shoe, so we can obviously attach it. And then what we need to make sure as well is we just attach it properly. So this is what it looks like. You have one side that's kind of domed a bit, and that's the side you want inwards. So underneath the shoe basically. That sits under there. And then the flat side where we're going to attach it, that sits on top of the shoe. You can see that there with the little holes on. So I want that flat side with the holes laid against the back of my piece. And obviously I want it sitting properly. So I'm going to make sure that I place it here. And again, before I completely attach it, it's an idea still to just place it and then refer back to the shoe still. Just to make sure we obviously attach it in the right place but also in the right direction. So just hold on to it there. Make sure nothing sticks above it. And then it's going to sit something like that. So I'm quite happy with how that's going to sit. So what I'm going to do now is start attaching this, and I have my wire coming out of the back like I said, so it's already ready. So what I'm going to do is take the end here, making sure I place it correctly so the dome is away from the piece, and I'm going to go through one side. And there isn't really a right and a wrong to this, just like kind of making the whole piece in the first place. It's just building it as you go. So that's one side, just like that. And then I'm going to take the end of the wire again and go back down through the piece. Obviously we're doing this as we're fastening the piece together as well, making it stronger. And then using these holes to then also attach the clips. And they're going to end up sitting on there quite nicely and securely. Pull that down, and then you can see that one side is basically attached now. And I just want to make sure that the wire, where it's coming from, is fastened as well. So I don't have any loose wire sticking out anywhere. Like that, and just pull it all the way through again, so it's nice and tight. So that's one side, but obviously I want it to be more secure than this. So all you want to do is continue the way I showed you before by fastening the piece together, and as we're doing that I'm going to go back round to the back again, and I prefer personally to go through each loop twice with the wire. So I'm going to go through the one I just went through again, coming back to it, then I'm going to move over to the other side of the clip, again moving through the roses, fastening them together, securing them more, and then go through the hole there on the other side of the clip in the exact same way. And again I'm going to do that twice, and then it's going to be attached nicely on the back so you can't see it when it's attached to the shoe, and then you just move all the way on to the other side, where you then obviously, in this case anyway, with the one I'm making here, I have the other clip I want to attach as well, and I just do that in the exact same way. So that's with this piece where I'm using the 2 clips. Now with the other one here, I just used the 1 clip. So it really depends what you want to do, whether you just need to use 1 or 2. Obviously depends on the size of the piece. So you just want to attach your clips like that, move all the way to the other end, attach all the clips that you want to use, and then you pretty much have your final piece. All we have to do then is get rid of the wire. So I then reached all the way to the other end here, and then you'll be able to see, and probably feel on your own as well, that it's much stronger now. You can't kind of pull it apart the same as we could before. So it's much sturdier, more of like a full piece. And also along the way, I made sure to attach the clips there, just like I showed you, to sit nicely and fit perfectly with the shoe as well. So they're attached nicely and have the piece sit exactly how I want it to. But then on this end, like I said, all I have to do is finish off the length of wire, because obviously we're done using it and I want to get rid of it, but also do it so it's nice and secure and without the end sticking out and scratching or catching anything, because obviously we want it to be comfortable to wear. So where I've ended up is, in this case, I've gone through one of the little loops behind a rose. So the starting point for the rose, you can really do it wherever you want. You feel it's nice to finish it off, and it doesn't have to be like this, but it's just how I'm doing it here. So I've gone through the loop once. What I'm then going to do is take the end, and I'm going to go through the same loop again in the same direction. So I'm having this end loop through it a few times, because I don't just want to go through once and then cut it off, because that won't be strong enough. I want to make sure that the wire loops around the same place a couple of times. That's what makes it more secure. So I'm pulling it all the way through, all the way down there, and then I'm just kind of going around once more, and you can go through the loop again if you want to. Just going to take some chain nose pliers, and then I just squeeze the loop tighter around the wire that I'm actually going around. So you can go through again if you want to, or you can finish it off here. But then what I'm going to do is cut it off, but I've placed my wire as if I was going to go around one more time, and then I'm going to cut it off on the side where I was going to go through the loop, and I'm going to leave about 1 millimeter or 2 of a tail, you could say, when I cut it off. So just like that. Then take my chain nose, and then I'm going to get that little end that's left, and we need to make sure to just tuck it away so it doesn't stick out and catch anything. So I'm going to take the very tip of it with my chain nose and bend it inwards a little bit, just a little flick of the wrist, like that, and then I'm just going to then squeeze it fully in. So the very end of the wire gets tucked right in there, basically behind this rose that I'm fastening it to. So it's nice and secure and also out of the way. And that's basically how I finish this off. So that's done now, and the whole piece is done as well now. So you have this, so all we need to do is attach it to the shoe. So I then have my shoe here. So just to show you what this one looks like on. So obviously you just open up the clips, in this case both of them, because I have 2 on this piece, because it's a bit of a larger one. Place it on my shoe here, where I want it to sit, and then close them back up. And then there you go, it sits nicely like that. And it's going to sit there really nicely and securely, and also comfortably, because the clips themselves, we have the dome part on the inside, so they're not going to catch or scratch, obviously on our skin. But also, the wire here, all of it is on the outside of the shoe basically, so there's nothing there to really irritate or catch on anything. So that's what it looks like. So then here I just have both the versions that I did. So we have the full one I showed you here in the copper, so from one side all the way across the front to the other side. But then also there's the version where it's just basically on one side and just gives a really nice effect there on the one side. So you can really make them however you want to, and obviously it'll give a completely different look as well. So that's what they look like. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial here, and thank you very much for watching.